Hello, and welcome to the Poor Man's Chemist. In this video, I'm going to be showing you the synthesis of Anthronic acid. And I'm doing the slightly unusual step of sitting here talking to y'all face to face before you actually see this thing, because this experiment has actually been a bit of a nightmare. And it's not the only one. There were going to be two other syntheses that I was going to film before this one, and they were total clusterfucks too. So, yeah. Sometimes it doesn't always work well. So anyway, done this reaction twice now, and filmed the vast majority of the second time. Lost the first clip of it somehow. So, rather than try to set it up and make it all fake, which I just don't do well, I'm just going to tell you about it, and we're just going to start from where I have footage, which is literally just making up the first solution, so you're not missing anything. But anyway, Anthranilic acid, the royal pain in my ass. The reason I want this chemical is I want this for 3 different experiments. 2 of them that I want to do videos for. One is the synthesis of indigo dye by reacting anthranic acid with chloroacetic acid and then reacting that with alkali to produce indigo. Cool, right? Another compound that I want to make is ethyl anthranilate. Ethyl anthranilate is a really cool molecule in that it is a DEET-like insect repellent and an artificial grape flavoring. And it's non-toxic insect repellent. How cool is that? So that sounded like a neat experiment. It's just a simple esterification. It should be pretty neat, right? And the third experiment that I'm wanting to work on, which isn't going to be in a video, at least not anytime soon, is I've been playing around with this little project of trying to separate transition metal cations on silica gel. It's, normally most of the literature that I've seen says to use cellulose plates for that, which are hard to find and ridiculously expensive. So I was thinking, if you created some kind of organic complex and then separated those, maybe that would work. Maybe it won't. I don't know. It's just a fun thing to mess with. And as it turns out, Anthronic acid forms very stable complexes with a lot of transition metals, cations. So, hey, great compound for all this stuff. Of course, the DEA has it on list 1. Yay! Which means that trying to buy it is next to impossible, and will probably get you a knock on the door. I'm a little surprised I didn't get one buying the Phthalimide in order to make the damn stuff. Again, the reason it's on list 1 is because people use it to make methaqualone. They react it with 2-aminotoluene, and it's not even anthranilic acid. They react N-acetyl anthranilic acid with 2-aminotoluene, also called orthotoluide. I cannot pronounce this word, people. It's 2-aminotoluene. We're just going to go with that. But yeah, so they reacted together to produce methaqualone, a drug that in the United States, my party days were in the 90s, and I never heard of anybody ever having methaqualone. That's like a 70s thing. I have never in all my days, of course I'm such a good and virtuous person, I wouldn't know anyway, right? But I've never seen or heard of methaqualone being around, so why they would have a shit fit about it as opposed to iodine or hydriodic acid or any of the other list 1 chemicals that I see synthesis videos for on YouTube, it doesn't make any sense. We're not making kilos of the crap, we're making less than 20 grams. So, I don't think it's a problem. I hope it's not a problem. But yeah, so, just put it all out there. It needs to be said. So, anyway, this video is going to start, the actual first step is to create a chilled sodium hydroxide solution and then to dissolve the phthalimide in it. Although I will freely admit that I did watch ChemPlayer's video on doing this synthesis after trying it the first time and just failing spectacularly. I watched their video for a few tips, but I did use a different protocol. I used the one off of prepchem.com. Theirs was a little different. But anyway, I used that one so that I wasn't repeating exactly what they had done. I hate doing that. You know, I'd at least put some originality in it somewhere. So, anyway, with this particular synthesis, since I cut it all in half, it started out with creating a solution of 40 grams of sodium hydroxide in 140 milliliters of water, and then chilling that down to about 10 degrees Celsius before adding the phthalimide to dissolve it. At the same time, the 5% sodium hypochlorite solution that I was going to use to actually do the reaction, was also cooling. That's really all that you're missing from me starting from the clips that I have. So, I mean, I think that, you know, although you absolutely should not do this at home, absolutely should not, you shouldn't, naughty kids. But, since I know, you know, kids just listen to their elders so much, yeah. So when you're not repeating this synthesis, you know, you haven't missed anything from where we're going to start. So, anyway, I hope you all enjoy this. I really do, because, dear God, this was just one of the biggest pain in the ass reactions I've ever done. So, anyway, without further ado, the synthesis of Anthronic acid. Alright, it took a while, but all the phthalimide is almost dissolved. The temperature on this solution has gone above 20. I don't know if you guys can see this that well or not, and given how much this freaking camera sucks. But yeah, it's about, I guess it's about 24 degrees C right now. And I have added a little bit of extra water just to, I had to rinse some stuff that splashed up on the sides here back down into the flask. I didn't really keep the water to a bare minimum when I did that, just because, I mean, yes, we want this to be alkaline, but the sodium hypochlorite solution here is also contains sodium hydroxide. It's also alkaline. So, since I have not compensated for that in any way, that should more than make up for any dilution that's happening here, rinsing stuff back down into the flask. I hope. It takes a long time to dissolve, y'all. And I really hate that it's getting so warm. But once it all does dissolve, although you don't see it in the protocol, ChemPlayer's tip is to chill this back down to 10 degrees C. So, again, sodium hypochlorite is nice and chilled. Once this is all dissolved, we'll take this off and we will cool this back down to 10 C. And then once that's at the right temperature, we will combine the hypochlorite with our solution of phthalimide, and that should generate sodium anthranilate. So, again, fingers crossed, people. Let's hope it works this time. Alright, our phthalimide solution is down to just under 10 degrees C. It's about 8 C. So, it's time to add the hypochlorite solution. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to add hypochlorite to this, and we're going to allow this to stir for 15 minutes. As the reaction happens, the temperature should go up to somewhere between 35 and 40 C. Theoretically, the temperature out here is already almost 30 C, so we'll see how this goes. But here goes nothing. We have our nice ice-chilled sodium hypochlorite. Add that in. And you notice I had to switch to a bigger beaker. Well, to a beaker, period. Alright, so now we need to let this stir for 15 minutes, and once that's done, we will move on to the next step. Alright everybody, it's been about 15 minutes that this has been stirring. It's only hit 27 C, which is like a degree under what it actually, the actual air temperature. But it did start off a little cooler than 10 C, So anyway, the next step is to go ahead and heat this up to 80 degrees Celsius with stirring in order to complete the reaction. So it's going to hit that temperature one way or another. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the heat, and we'll just let it keep going here. And once it hits 80 degrees Celsius, we will turn off the heat and allow it to cool back down to room temperature before we go on to the next step. Alright, so our reaction mixture has hit 80 degrees Celsius here. You can see it's turned ever so slightly yellow. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take it off the heat. ChemPlayer recommends chilling it before the next step, and since by following their tips I'm already getting much better results than I did the first time I did this, we're going to go with that. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on a little bit of ice after I take it off here and let it cool off for just a little bit, and cool back down to around 10 degrees C before we move on to the next step. ChemPlayer also recommends separating a little bit of this out after it cools down to set aside for the next step that's coming. So when we get back, I will have that all ready to go. And the reason is because the next step we're going to neutralize this, and it has to be neutralized exactly. You don't want to go over. We found that out the hard way too. So that sounds like a neat trick that they recommended, so we're going to try that. But anyway, I will come back here when this is chilled down and we're ready to move on to the next step. Alright everyone, the solution is exactly neutral after all this time. I know, I'm not even going to screw with this. This is what it looked like before I did the neutralization. This is what it looks like at neutral. Now, ChemPlayers did not look this dark. I can only guess that's an impurity in the sodium hypobromite that I used. Something else that's in there. I don't know that it's going to interfere or not. I'm not sure. But since everything's going much better than yesterday, we're just going to continue. So the next step now is, and I'm not even going to, like I said, I'm not screwing with this. I don't even care. And there is another step we can do to recover it, actually, because where ChemPlayer stops, but where this protocol continues, it has you recover the anthranilic acid that doesn't crystallize in the step that we're about to do by adding copper sulfate to this, precipitating it out as copper anthranilate, displacing copper from that by bubbling hydrogen sulfide gas through it, and then recovering the rest of the anthronic acid that way. If this is theoretically sodium anthranilate, it'd be interesting to see if copper would drop that out too. Then again, it's alkaline. That may not work. I don't know. Could be interesting to play with. So, anyway, I don't care about a perfect yield. I really don't. So now, we're going to add glacial acetic acid, and this should precipitate the Anthronic acid. Now, when I did this yesterday, it didn't. But we'll see. We want to do it just a little bit at a time here. And you have to use glacial acetic acid for this step in order to get the Anthronic acid to precipitate. Is it precipitating, or are we just getting bubbles? We're just getting bubbles. Okay. Anything? No. Just bubbles. Yeah, I don't think that's solids. That's just fizz. I don't know, it's getting cloudy. Now, ChemPlayer did mention that it would take it a few minutes to precipitate out, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let this just stir for a little bit, and I'm going to see what it does. Now that's interesting. I should note that it doesn't look like the temperature's going up significantly. Oh yeah. Okay, it is happening, people. Anthranilic acid is beginning to precipitate. That is pretty damn cool. Okay, what is going on there? Interesting. Well, we've definitely got a lot of solid in there. Although, this foam is weird. I know, you should never ever stir stuff up with a thermometer. Every chemistry teacher will tell you that's like terrible and awful, and they're absolutely right, it really is. You should not do that. Because if the thermometer breaks, it's going to ruin everything. But then again, you're not doing this at home, so you know, just telling you for general chemistry lab knowledge. Okay. Is the precipitate like in the foam? What is happening here? You know, it's going to seem weird, but I think that might be what's happening. Or it's getting trapped in there or something. Yeah, don't chuck out the foam when you're not doing this. Curiouser and curiouser. Yeah, I think I see why this method has you get the rest of the Anthronic acid out of the filtrate by precipitating it as copper anthranilate, because like this procedure ends up where there's a good bit of liquid by the time you're done. I think I probably ended up with maybe about 100 mils too much, you know, more liquid than I should have. Although, as you may have picked up on by now, so long as I get some Anthronic acid off this method at this point, I'll be happy. When y'all aren't doing this at home, you can have fun optimizing this pain in the ass. Alright, well, I'm going to allow this to chill for a little while and precipitate all it's going to precipitate. And then the next step will be to filter off the Anthronic acid and wash it with water. I don't know. I may do the recovery of the filtrate as a separate video because it's getting to be late in the afternoon and it's really hot and humid out here. Plus, it looks like it might rain soon. And, I mean, I did that yesterday, and the smell of sulfide, I can only take so much, man. It's still lingering around here. It's terrible. Anyway, I will come back when I am ready to filter this bad boy. Man, there's a lot of it in there. That's pretty cool. Okay, people, so I filtered off the Anthronic acid and I washed it with 100 mils of ice water, and this brown sugar looking stuff is what I've got. It still has to be dried out, but yeah, this kind of looks like shit. Like I said, it has to be the sodium hypochlorite solution that I used, because everything else was, I feel pretty good about the purity of almost everything else. I mean, the HCl, okay, that's hardware store HCl, so maybe that could be it. That could be. I'm not really sure. But the protocol that I've been working from says that this can be recrystallized from boiling water, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to dry this out, get a good weight on it, and then I will recrystallize it and see if I can't get something that looks a little better than this. So for now, we're not calling this the final product, we're calling this the crude product, because yeah, that looks pretty crude. But anyway, we'll see what the rest of it looks like later. Okay, everyone, I did decide to go ahead and make up the copper anthranilate just to separate it out, and like I said, I'm not doing hydrogen sulfide today, but yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll keep this for later, and maybe I'll screw around with it later. So this is what it looks like, though. It's really beautiful. So yeah, I'm gonna let this stir here for a minute and filter it out, and I'll dry that and save it too, and set that aside for another day. But for now, I'm just going to recrystallize that other anthranilic acid, that crude stuff. Right now, I've got it drying out in a desiccator over 3 angstrom molecular sieves. Besides using them to dry out your solvents, they also make great drying materials for a desiccator. They really do. They work great. So anyway, yeah. But I thought y'all might like to see what copper anthranilate at least looks like. It is very pretty. So, there you go. But yeah, if you're interested, I guess I should include this too. So what you would do would basically be to suspend this solution and bubble hydrogen sulfide through it, and then that would precipitate out copper sulfide, and that will free up the anthranilic acid. You filter off the copper sulfide, discard that, and then you retrieve the anthranilic acid from that solution. Anyway, it's all in the protocol on PrepChem if you're interested, if you're really just gunning to get the most yield possible. As I made clear earlier, I don't really care about that. I just want to have enough to be able to do these other experiments, and that's all I really give a damn about. But anyway, I mean, it is pretty convenient. Obviously, hydrogen sulfide is really, really poisonous, so yeah. Another thing to think about when you're not doing this at home, you know, make sure that you don't kill yourself on the hydrogen sulfide when you're not working with it. So, anyway, good advice for a happy life. Okay, I guess there wasn't as much copper anthranilate as I thought there was. Well, now you know. Alright, everybody, so I dried the crude anthranilic acid overnight, and after doing that, I have dissolved it in 125 milliliters of boiling water. It almost completely dissolved except for a few little pieces, and then as soon as it started cooling down, the anthranilic acid started crystallizing out of the water. So I think that's a good amount to do a recrystallization with. Is probably about 125, 150 mils at the most, maybe, for doing this particular synthesis and the crappy yield I got. But anyway, hey, at least I got it to work this time, and that's what's important. So here it is recrystallizing, and once I've filtered it out and dried it, I will come back and show you guys what it looks like, and then we will wrap up the video. Alright, everybody, so this is my final dried recrystallized product. As you can see, the weight is not that great. The yield was kind of crappy. The color still isn't fantastic, but it's acceptable. It is, however, very light, very fluffy, very sparkly. So, I mean, it's definitely beautiful. So, yeah, there you have it, people. The synthesis of Anthronic acid from Phthalimide. Again, got a very crappy yield, but I think that was probably just from the hardware store HCl that I used. I would imagine that if you had used, reagent grade HCl and sodium hypochlorite, you'd get a much better yield than this. And, if you had, recovered the Anthranilic acid from the copper anthranilate, but, obviously your yield would be much better then too. But I am happy with this. So, there it is. I really hope you all enjoyed watching the video. I've been wanting to do this one for a while, so I'm glad it's finally done. And be patient, because I have some more cool stuff that will be coming here in the near future that I think y'all will really enjoy. So again, thanks for watching. Please like, dislike, comment, tell me how awesome I am, tell me how much I suck. I don't care. I'm happy to hear anything. So, thanks for watching, and until the next video, we'll see you later.